We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no great war, no great depression. Our great war is a spiritual war. Our great depression is our lives.
Let those words sink in. Do you feel that? The sting of recognition, the eerie sense that Tyler is speaking not just to them, but to you. We live in a world where we're told we can be anything, buy everything, and live perfectly curated lives. And yet, despite the glossy Instagram feeds and endless Amazon wish lists, something feels off. It's as if we're constantly chasing a sense of fulfillment that remains just out of reach. Here's the question. Why do we feel so empty in a world where we seem to have everything? This is the question Fight Club dares to ask. Beneath the broken noses and anarchist chaos lies a deeper exploration of something many of us wrestle with every day, the void inside us. To understand the world of Fight Club, we first need to understand a philosophy at its core, nihilism. So, what is nihilism? In simple terms, nihilism is the belief that life has no inherent meaning, purpose, or value. It challenges the structures, religion, morality, societal norms that humans have clung to for centuries to make sense of their existence. Nihilism strips all of that away, leaving us face to face with the cold, unsettling question: if nothing truly matters, what's the point? The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche famously declared, "God is dead." Now, this wasn't a celebration or an act of rebellion, it was a diagnosis. Nietzsche wasn't saying a deity had literally died. Instead, he was acknowledging that, in the modern era, the old sources of meaning, religion, tradition, and moral absolutes were crumbling. Humanity, he argued, had outgrown these structures, but in their absence, we were left adrift, lost in a world without a clear why. The film doesn't just entertain, it holds up a cracked mirror to modern life and forces us to confront our own disillusionment. In this video, we'll dive headfirst into the philosophy of Fight Club. We'll uncover how it critiques the hollow promises of consumerism, confronts the uncomfortable truths of nihilism, and challenges us to find meaning in a seemingly meaningless world. So, buckle up. This isn't just about Fight Club. It's about you, your life, and that gnawing emptiness we've all tried to ignore. And this is where Fight Club steps in. The film embodies this existential crisis through its characters and themes. The narrator represents the modern individual, drowning in consumerism, disconnected from any sense of purpose, and numbing himself with IKEA catalogs and Starbucks lattes. His life is an endless loop of purchasing things he doesn't need to fill a void he doesn't understand. Tyler Durden, on the other hand, is nihilism personified. He rebels against societal norms, rejects traditional values, and tears down anything that suggests life should have order or meaning. Tyler's infamous line,
The things you own end up owning you.
a direct critique of consumer culture, exposing how our desperate search for meaning often gets misplaced in material possessions. This clash between the narrator's existential crisis and Tyler's anarchist philosophy mirrors Nietzsche's warning. When the old systems collapse, we're left with two choices. We can either succumb to despair, what Nietzsche called passive nihilism, or we can confront the void and build something new, a path Nietzsche referred to as active nihilism. Fight Club immerses us in this battle, showing how rejecting societal norms and questioning traditional values can be liberating but also dangerous. It asks us to grapple with the fallout of living in a world where God is dead and forces us to consider what comes next. The question Nietzsche left us with, and the question Fight Club forces us to confront, is this: if nothing has inherent meaning, how do we create a life that matters? The narrator of Fight Club is not just a character, he's a reflection of us. He embodies the modern individual, alienated, unfulfilled, and trapped in a cycle of mindless consumerism. His life is meticulously organized yet completely empty. His job as a recall coordinator for a car company is the epitome of soulless labor, focused solely on calculating costs rather than saving lives. And his personal life? Reduced to assembling an identity from the pages of an IKEA catalog. But the cracks in his facade are obvious, most notably through his battle with insomnia. The narrator's inability to sleep isn't just a medical condition, It's a powerful metaphor for disconnection from meaning. Without a purpose, without anything real to hold on to, his mind refuses to rest. As he puts it, when you have insomnia, you're never really asleep and you're never really awake. He's stuck in this liminal state, drifting through a life that feels less like living and more like existing. This disconnection drives him to attend support groups for diseases he doesn't have, where he finds a fleeting sense of human connection. It's here, in the embrace of strangers, that he feels alive, but it's a band-aid, not a cure. Then there's the infamous IKEA catalogue scene, a biting critique of materialism. We watch as the narrator flips through the pages, obsessing over the perfect coffee table, the right dining set, and the clever little desks. He lists their names and prices like their achievements, proudly stating, "I had it all," even the glass dishes with tiny bubbles and imperfections, proof they were crafted by the honest, simple, hard-working indigenous peoples of wherever. It's satire at its finest. The narrator believes he's building a life, but in reality, he's just accumulating things. These possessions don't give him meaning. They give him a false sense of identity. He doesn't own them, they own him. And this is where the genius of Fight Club lies. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth about ourselves. How often do we try to fill the emptiness with things? How many of us look to material possessions, clothes, gadgets, decor, to define who we are, hoping they'll somehow make us feel whole? The narrator's crisis is painfully relatable. His insomnia, his consumerism, his alienation, they're not just his struggles, they're the struggles of a society that has traded genuine meaning for superficial comfort. And as the narrator spirals further into his existential void, we're left wondering, if this is what modern life offers, how do we break free? This question sets the stage for Tyler Durden's explosive entrance, a character who offers the narrator, and us, a radical, if dangerous alternative to the emptiness of modern life. Enter Tyler Durden, the enigmatic, charismatic force that upends the narrator's carefully curated, hollow life. Tyler is more than a person. He's an idea, a manifestation of rebellion against the constraints of modern society. He rejects every norm, mocks every institution, and tears down the very fabric of what the narrator, and by extension, we, have been conditioned to believe about success, identity, and purpose. Tyler's philosophy is raw, chaotic, and undeniably seductive. One of his most memorable lines sums it up perfectly.
We've lost everything, but we're free to do anything.
At its core, this is nihilism distilled into action. Tyler's message is simple. Strip away the illusions, your possessions, your job, your status, and you'll uncover something more authentic, something primal. For Tyler, freedom lies in destruction. He believes that by demolishing the false idols of consumerism and societal expectations, we can reclaim our lives. When he says, the things you own end up owning you, it's not just a critique of materialism, it's a declaration of war against the way society chains us to a false sense of security. Tyler's solution is radical. Destroy the old to make way for something new, even if that something new is pure chaos. But here's where things get complicated. Tyler's brand of nihilism is destructive, even reckless. It's a rejection of all meaning without offering a clear path forward. His vision for freedom is explosive and anarchic, symbolized by the escalating violence of Fight Club and the birth of Project Mayhem. And while this destruction can feel exhilarating, especially to the narrator, it ultimately spirals out of control, leaving devastation in its wake. This is where Tyler's philosophy diverges from Friedrich Nietzsche's idea of active nihilism. Nietzsche acknowledged that the collapse of old values, the death of God, as he put it, would leave a void, but he didn't see destruction as the end goal. For Nietzsche, active nihilism was about creating meaning, not just tearing everything down. He believed in overcoming nihilism by embracing life's chaos and using it as a canvas for self-creation. This is where his concept of the Übermensch, or Overman, comes in, a person who rises above despair to forge their own path and values. In contrast, Tyler represents the darker side of nihilism, what happens when rejection becomes an end in itself. He's not interested in building something better, he's interested in watching the world burn. And while his philosophy initially feels liberating to the narrator, it ultimately becomes suffocating. Tyler's famous words, "We're all part of the same compost heap," encapsulate his nihilistic worldview. Life to him, is meaningless. And the only way to confront that meaninglessness is to embrace destruction. But Nietzsche would challenge this. He'd ask, if life has no inherent meaning, why not take that as an opportunity to create your own? Tyler's philosophy resonates because it taps into our frustration, our disillusionment with modern life. But as we'll see, the narrator's journey shows us that while rejecting the old is necessary, it's not enough. True freedom lies not in destruction, but in what we choose to build from the rubble. At its core, Fight Club isn't just a story about two men creating chaos. It's a scathing critique of modern society. Beneath its gritty surface lies a searing indictment of capitalism, consumer culture, and the hollow pursuit of identity through possessions. The film forces us to confront the unsettling reality of a world that tells us to define ourselves not by who we are, but by what we own. One of the film's most iconic moments comes when the narrator's meticulously curated apartment explodes into flames, reducing his carefully chosen IKEA furniture to smoldering rubble. Just moments before, we see the narrator flipping through a catalogue, obsessing over clever little products that promise to complete his life. But when his apartment is destroyed, Tyler Durden delivers a brutal truth. The things you own end up owning you. This moment is more than just the loss of material possessions. It's the symbolic destruction of the narrator's false sense of self. His apartment, his furniture, his wardrobe, all of it was an illusion, a desperate attempt to buy happiness and identity in a world that equates value with consumption. But as Tyler's philosophy takes root, we see the film push back against this narrative, rejecting the idea that meaning can be found in the accumulation of things. Fight Club also critiques how capitalism dehumanizes us, reducing individuals to mere cogs in a machine. The narrator's job is a perfect example of this. His work is cold, detached, and morally empty, prioritizing profit over human lives. He admits it himself when he describes the grim cost-benefit analysis he performs. If the cost of a recall exceeds the cost of potential lawsuits, the company does nothing. This kind of corporate logic strips away humanity, leaving people like the narrator feeling alienated and insignificant. Then there's the Fight Club itself, a visceral reaction to the emasculation and loss of individuality brought about by modern life. The men who join Fight Club aren't just fighting each other, they're fighting the monotony, powerlessness, and disconnection they feel in their day-to-day lives. In a world that has stripped them of agency, the physical pain and raw violence of the fights become a way to reclaim their sense of self. Tyler sums it up perfectly when he says, "We're a generation of men raised by women. I'm wondering if another woman is really the answer we need." While controversial, this line reflects a deep frustration with how traditional ideas of masculinity have been eroded and replaced by a culture that encourages conformity, submission, and passivity. Fight Club becomes a space where these men can rebel against that, reconnecting with a primal sense of power and purpose. But while Fight Club offers temporary relief, it's not a true solution. The violence and destruction it fosters are ultimately hollow, an extension of Tyler's nihilistic worldview. The film critiques not only the societal forces that drive the men to this point, but also the dangers of going too far in rejecting those forces. In essence, Fight Club challenges us to question the foundations of our modern lives. It asks, is your identity defined by your possessions, by your job, by the expectations society has placed on you? And if the answer is yes, the film dares us to imagine what it would mean to let go of all of it, to burn it down and start anew. But as the narrator eventually discovers, rejecting the status quo is only the first step. The real challenge lies in finding something meaningful to replace it. Nihilism is seductive. It promises freedom from the shackles of societal expectations, the illusions of meaning, and the pressures of conformity. But as Fight Club vividly shows us, this freedom comes with a dark side. When nihilism goes unchecked, it has the potential to spiral into violence, chaos, and destruction, not just outwardly but inwardly as well. Tyler Durden embodies this descent into destructive nihilism. At first, his philosophy feels liberating, offering the narrator, and us, a way to break free from the suffocating grip of modern life. Tyler tears down the walls of consumerism, mocks societal norms, and champions the raw authenticity of pain and chaos. But as the film progresses, we see how his nihilism becomes a dangerous force. consuming everything in its path. One of Tyler's most chilling proclamations is, "We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no great war, no great depression. Our great war is a spiritual war. Our great depression is our lives." This line captures the existential despair that drives Tyler's philosophy. In a world stripped of traditional meaning, he sees destruction as the only way forward. But instead of using this void to create something new, Tyler fills it with chaos and violence. As seen in the rise of Project Mayhem. Project Mayhem is the ultimate expression of nihilism gone wrong. What starts as an underground fight club, a raw, visceral way for men to reconnect with themselves, evolves into a full-blown campaign of anarchy. Tyler's mantra, "It's only after we've lost everything that we're free to do anything," takes on a dangerous literal meaning as his followers carry out acts of vandalism, terrorism, and destruction. In their rejection of societal norms, they lose sight of individuality and become cogs in Tyler's own chaotic machine, a dark irony considering Tyler's rebellion against conformity. This descent mirrors Friedrich Nietzsche's warning about the dangers of nihilism. Nietzsche described nihilism as a kind of existential abyss, a void that stares back at you if you gaze into it too long. In Beyond Good and Evil, he writes, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you." In Fight Club, Tyler is that abyss. At first, the narrator looks to Tyler as a guide, a way to escape the emptiness of his life. But as he becomes more entangled in Tyler's philosophy, he realizes that the destruction Tyler represents doesn't lead to freedom, it leads to madness. The very nihilism that was supposed to liberate him ends up enslaving him in a cycle of chaos and despair. This is the inherent problem with nihilism. While it can be freeing, it can also be paralyzing or worse, destructive. Without a way to move beyond the void, nihilism becomes an end in itself, leaving us lost and untethered. Nietzsche recognized this danger and argued that we must overcome nihilism by creating new values and embracing the chaos of life as an opportunity for growth and meaning. In Fight Club, we see what happens when that step is missed. Tyler's philosophy, for all its allure, lacks a constructive path forward. It tears down without building anything in its place. And in the end, the narrator is left to grapple with the consequences of staring into the abyss for too long. The film's message is clear. While rejecting the false comforts of modern life is necessary, nihilism alone is not enough. If we stop at destruction, we risk losing ourselves in the void. The real challenge lies in what comes next, finding the courage to face the emptiness and create something meaningful from the chaos. Fight Club doesn't just leave us in the void of nihilism, it also hints at what lies beyond it. In its chaotic unraveling of modern life, the film invites us to grapple with a difficult yet profound question. If nihilism reveals the emptiness at the heart of our lives, what do we do next? How do we step out of the abyss and into something meaningful? By the end of the film, the narrator's journey provides an answer, or at least the beginnings of one. After being seduced by Tyler Durden's destructive philosophy, the narrator eventually realizes that Tyler is not a savior, but a monster of his own creation. Tyler's brand of nihilism, while liberating at first, ultimately leaves the narrator more lost and powerless than ever. In a climactic moment of self-realization, the narrator reclaims control over his life. The scene where he points a gun at his own head and confronts Tyler is deeply symbolic. It represents the narrator killing the part of himself that embodies nihilistic chaos and destruction. This act is not just about rejecting Tyler, it's about rejecting the seductive but incomplete promise of nihilism itself. By doing so, the narrator takes the first step toward finding something beyond the void. Here we can draw a parallel to Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, or overman. Nietzsche saw nihilism not as an endpoint but as a beginning, a necessary reckoning with the collapse of old values that opens the door to creating new ones. The Übermensch is someone who embraces this challenge, someone who finds meaning not in external structures or inherited beliefs, but in their own capacity to create and affirm life. Nietzsche writes in, "Thus spoke Zarathustra, man is a rope stretched between animal and Übermensch, a rope over an abyss." This line captures the delicate balancing act required to move beyond nihilism. It's not enough to tear down the old. We must also build something new, something uniquely our own. In Fight Club, the narrator begins this process by rejecting Tyler's destructive nihilism. and taking responsibility for his life. It's a subtle but powerful shift. He moves from being a passive participant in Tyler's chaos to an active agent of his own destiny. The film also hints at the importance of relationships in finding meaning. In the final scene, as the narrator holds Marla's hand and watches the buildings collapse, there's a sense of quiet resolution. While the destruction unfolding around them is a remnant of Tyler's philosophy, the narrator's active connection with Marla suggests a step towards something more human and grounded. It's a reminder that meaning is not found in grand gestures or systems, but in the small, intimate moments of life. This echoes another of Nietzsche's ideas, the concept of amor fati, or the love of fate. To Nietzsche, overcoming nihilism requires not just creating new values, but embracing life in all its chaos and imperfection. As he writes in Ecce Homo, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." In reclaiming his life, the narrator begins to embody this philosophy, choosing to face the chaos head-on, rather than running from it. So, if nihilism is the starting point, how do we build something meaningful from the chaos? Fight Club doesn't offer easy answers, but it does leave us with a challenge: to confront the emptiness, reject the false comforts of modern life, and take responsibility for creating our own meaning. It's a deeply personal journey, one that requires us to ask difficult questions about what truly matters, and to find the courage to live authentically in a world without inherent purpose. In the end, Fight Club is not just a critique of modern life or an exploration of nihilism. It's a call to action. It invites us to tear down the illusions that keep us trapped, but it also reminds us that destruction is only the first step. The real challenge lies in what comes next, the messy, difficult, and ultimately rewarding work of building a life that feels meaningful, not because someone else says it is, but because we've made it so. So, as the credits roll and the dust settles, we're left with one final question: what will you create from the chaos? As Fight Club takes us through its gritty, anarchic journey, it holds up a mirror to our modern lives. It forces us to confront the emptiness behind our endless pursuit of possessions, the alienation bred by societal norms, and the dangerous allure of nihilism. But it also points us towards something deeper, the possibility of moving beyond the void and finding a meaning that is uniquely our own. We've explored the core ideas of nihilism and how Nietzsche's philosophy helps frame the film's critique of consumer culture and the existential crises of modern life. We've seen the narrator's descent into chaos through Tyler Durden, the embodiment of rebellion and destruction, and his eventual awakening to the dangers of nihilism unchecked. Ultimately, Fight Club isn't just about tearing things down, it's about the opportunity that lies on the other side of destruction, the chance to rebuild, to create, and to rediscover what truly matters. As Nietzsche himself reminds us, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. This quote resonates deeply with the film's final message. It's not enough to reject the false promises of consumerism or to revel in the freedom of nihilism. The real challenge is finding your why, the personal meaning that will anchor you and guide you through life's chaos. So now, it's your turn. Look at your own life, your own routines, and ask yourself, are you simply going through the motions, filling the void with distractions? Or are you ready to confront the chaos and take responsibility for building something meaningful? Let this be your moment of reflection, your own call to action. Tyler Durden might have burned everything down, but you have the power to rise from the ashes and create your own meaning, your own why. So, what's your why?